This is Stop 11 on the Regina Cyclone self-guided walking tour. The Regina Cyclone of 1912 was Canada's deadliest tornado, with 28 dead and 10% of the city's population left homeless. This tour will lead you through locations in Regina's downtown, starting from the Hotel Saskatchewan and continuing north through the downtown before completing the tour at Victoria Park. Along the way, you will learn about landmarks, both past and present, that mark impacted locations affected by the cyclone's destructive power. The final location on our tour is Victoria Park, located between 11th and Victoria Avenues and Lorne and Scarth Streets. We will also hear about the reconstruction efforts and the financial toll that the cyclone took on Regina. Victoria Park was designated as a green space right from the first moment of settlement in 1882. Despite numerous obstacles, including the desirability of the real estate and efforts by town founders to give it away as a location for the new provincial government buildings, it had remained an oasis in the middle of the city for over 130 years. In its earliest incarnation, Victoria Park was little more than a green field. During that time, it served as a gathering place for residents, a cricket pitch, and a practice field for marching bands. By 1912, the city had hired Frederick W. Todd, who also landscaped the grounds around the legislative buildings in Wascana Park, to beautify the city's first park. A spoke design, complete with a focal point in the center, was planned for the park. The center fountain had not yet been installed when the cyclone struck in 1912. The fledgling trees in Victoria Park were completely flattened by the storm, and buildings to all sides of the park suffered damage ranging from devastating to catastrophic. 2 people were killed on the park's borders. To the immediate south of the park, the First Baptist Church had its roof ripped off. The residential area behind that church was among the worst hit areas. This subdivision was then known as the transition area because it marked a transition from residential property to the city's downtown business district. The transition area was, at the time, one of the wealthiest residential neighborhoods in the city. The cathedral area to the west had just started construction, with the Holy Rosary Cathedral not completed until 1913. The Crescents area and Old Lakeview had a few scattered houses built by dreamers who believed that the proximity of those areas to the new legislative building would pay off in the long run, but by and large these affluent areas were not yet under construction. The transition area was therefore the best place to live if you were a wealthy resident of the city. On the border of the park along Victoria Avenue lived a number of mayors and former mayors, including Peter McCarra Jr. and F.N. Dark. Judges, businessmen, and politicians called the transition area home. Because the tornado touched down in the late afternoon on a Sunday, when most people were at home getting ready for the evening meal, the death toll was large. 28 people died right away, and 2 would later succumb to their injuries. About 300 were injured. Rescuers crawled over the rubble, listening for any faint sounds from survivors. Damage was capricious, with some houses razed into toothpicks and others left standing. Furniture within some buildings was left untouched, although the wall and roof of the house may have been completely gone. For days afterwards, people crawled over the wreckage in an attempt to salvage all they could from the destroyed buildings. The new legislative buildings had not yet been formally opened, although there were displays from the collection that would become the Royal Saskatchewan Museum set up in the building, and some government departments had already begun to occupy their office space. The cyclone started south of the legislative buildings, but skirted around the building itself. Windows were blown out, displays damaged, and papers tossed around, but the building remained intact. This was purely the luck of the draw. The force of the storm would have been enough to bring the building down, in spite of the heavy construction materials used in the legislative building. The building featured brick walls, faced with Tyndall stone, with the interior using 44 different kinds of marble. The building is so heavy that it has been sinking into the heavy clay soils of Regina since its construction, and has had to be reinforced to prevent structural damage. In spite of this, the F4 funnels would have pulled the building down had they directly crossed into its path. The Regina Boat Club was not so lucky. Its clubhouse was directly in the path of the storm. Wascana Lake had become a major recreational destination, starting in earnest in 1911, when the street railway lines went out to what was then the outskirts of the city. The lake, which had been deepened by the CPR to serve as a reservoir for trains, soon became a recreational hotspot, and on a scorching Sunday afternoon in June there were many people enjoying boating and swimming when the storm struck. Boats and unlucky passengers were thrown in the air, and buildings on the north side of the lake were destroyed. When news of the cyclone reached the outside world, City Hall began to receive all kinds of letters. Many of the letters asked about the welfare of various family members. The city operated a central checkpoint for survivors at the Black Block downtown, and was able to inform worried correspondents of their family members' fates. A number of other letters came in offering donations to go toward the relief effort. As with the disasters today, people from all over the world were touched by the plight of Regina residents and wanted to offer assistance. Some sent small amounts of money, all they could afford, $1 here or there, pennies saved up by school children. Other donations were much more substantial. Many other municipalities donated money, as did prominent businesses and wealthy people from Canada and beyond. Donations came in from as far away as New Zealand. While public donations helped, the real financial force behind the rebuilding was the $500,000 loan the City of Regina took out from the provincial government. Because there was no insurance for events such as this at the time, rebuilding would not have been possible without the Cyclone Relief Fund. Even the town's wealthiest residents and most prominent businessmen needed loans to rebuild their houses and businesses. 1/10 of the city's population was left homeless when the cyclone struck, and it became a race against the weather to get houses rebuilt before winter set in. Among the telegrams and letters that came into the city after the storm, there were a number of inquiries about the possibility of reconstruction work. The city wrote back welcoming carpenters, electricians, and plumbers in droves from as far away as Winnipeg. Through massive effort, a year after the disaster, the cyclone damage was completely repaired. The only damage remaining was financial. It would take 46 years to pay off the loan from the province. Thank you for taking the Regina Cyclone self-guided tour. We hope you've enjoyed your trip into the past. You can find the City of Regina on Twitter or Facebook, or visit regina.ca for more information about Regina, including heritage and history content.